You'll have a stack of cards at the table when you leave.
Yes.
I have to talk about something a bit more serious than cricket now. I'm one of the advisors of the Eastern Neighbourhoods Public Benefits Funds that over a year ago made a $25,000 donation to the McKinley Square Foundation. The other advisors are very frustrated that money has not been spent at all, and they've asked me to find out what the plans are for that $25,000. Are there some improvements that can be made in the short term? I will tell you that one of the advisors has asked me to see about getting the money back because they don't like it just sitting in a bank account. I've asked for more time on that, so I think the money's there, and we need to talk about what the plans are for that money. It wasn't designed to sit in a bank account for a prolonged period of time.
Okay. I think to follow on to that point, and also Steve's point, that would be useful is to really focus on some short-term ways to spend some of this grant money to do a couple of fundamental things that we can all agree upon, like improved lighting on the lower area and some fencing at the top of slopes, because one thing I'm concerned about is erosion. So if we can plant creatively with natural grasses and things that will hold the land, because on some of the slopes people will run their dogs up and down, which is fine to some extent, but often it gets bare during certain times of the year due to that running up and down the slope. So if we can find ways to terrace a little bit, or do some simple terracing, improve the fence line so it's the edge of slopes in some respect on a lower level, maybe we can find ways we can agree upon spending some of this $25,000 that's been donated. Thank you very much, by the way. But also, that would be really good. Obviously, we're looking long-term for some grand ideas. But if we can discuss a few things like water fountains, restrooms, lighting, and some other things that perhaps over the next couple of meetings we can all agree upon, that would be really good.
Is there a specific location that you recall the erosion?
Well, below the park is one area that
in here,
grassy area. Below the grassy area, below that
right
one plateau on the western slope there. Yeah. Not that we need a fence there necessarily, but that's one area where there's erosion, and then
maybe up in here. Not there, but more like in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
There are different places where erosion can happen, but there has been some creative planning that's helped, so there is progress. Yes.
I think in terms of creative, all we need to do is actually look to the one remnant of serpentine grassland that we still have in the neighborhood, which is the Star King open space. And so those areas that are eroded, there's actually native species, whether it's sedum, small flowers, goldfields, they're incredibly beautiful, that were once everywhere in California, types of flowers that we can basically put in those spots because that's where they would have been before we disturbed the area. So we can use nature as a guide to know what would be the important plants that would solve that problem.
Yes?
You know what I would like? I would like, if possible, handrails. Stairs going up, either in the center or on the side. Mm-hmm. Very difficult to come down with children, trying to hold on to them as well as trying to get the balance.
And that's both in the entrance stairs here?
The main stairs going up on 20, yeah.
Excuse me, but rather than shooting out ideas, I think it's important, whilst there are the two different organisations that have been so involved in McKinley Square for so long now, and so many neighbours, that a mechanism is put in place for deciding how that $25,000 is going to be spent. Rather than deciding we'll deal with erosion here or whatever, is a committee going to be formed or that's going to actually have control of that money and decide how it's going to be spent, or is it just going to sit in this account without a strict decision-making process for the expenditure of that money?
Can I ask a question? I don't understand. Who is McKinleysquare.com and who is the McKinley Square Foundation and who is the group with the native grasses? I see three different groups as far as I can tell so far, but I feel like we're sort of wallowing in all these different organizations that...
Can I just address that? San Francisco Parks Trust is the fiscal sponsor for McKinley Square Park Foundation. So we're the ones who are actually holding that donation.
Okay.
And one of the purposes of this meeting is to put that decision-making, well, of all the meetings, it's not going to come out of the first meeting, but the end result is going to be to put that decision-making process in place and to work towards, as John was saying, short-term and long-term projects, so that we can spend the money and, you know, look towards raising more money. So
In essence, is the 25,000 the short term? Is that the budget?
that's how much we have at the moment.
That's the budget?
At the moment, yeah.
Okay, okay.
And if you want to talk to me more about that, or if any of the other people on your committee want to give me a call, feel free.
We don't have your contact information.
Right.
It's not
Well,
on the
I
hand.
have
You can
business
contact me.
cards, and
So,
my email address is Maria.
Yes?
I noticed a lot of the trees on that hill, people have been talking about it, and marked for, I guess, to be cut down. Do you know what the plans, the specific plans are for how many trees will be gone, and what will be put up to replace them, to cut down on wind and the noise of the trees are down?
So, I don't know the specifics, but if the goal is to have more wind protection and more trees, then I think that's something we can add to the wish list, and then work towards finding a way for that to be achieved. But the exact numbers and how some trees were removed, I don't know.
I think you're referring to them painted blue.
Yes.
Steve, do you want?
So about 18 months ago, roughly, more, almost 2 years ago, our horticultural staff painted those just to solicit feedback. You know, there was one dead tree that we did remove, and one other tree that was really poorly positioned that was removed, and the rest were just simply to find out what the temperature of the water was with the community. So the blue paint unfortunately lingers longer than we had hoped, and perhaps we need to go back out to our brown paint and make it right.
So what was the temperature of the community?
Mixed, actually. A lot of people totally got that removing the trees would have some benefit, but a lot of other people said, what are you doing? These are great trees. Now, there is a long-term, and this is going back into I'd love to encourage us to expand beyond the existing. Those trees are all dying. If you really take off the rose-colored glasses, those trees are in decline and are declining very quickly. There's a couple of the cypress that are in that grove that are standing dead trees. Some of them are posing considerable hazard, like the one that is pushing out the retaining wall on 20th. And there's some significant challenges in reforesting this site. At the risk of being a heretic in this group, I've often wondered why the park is not at street grade. You know, it's the silliest thing in the world to me to go up a staircase to go down a hill. And if the park were just graded at street grade, the usable flat section would be almost triple in square footage. So, you know, I'm not trying to guide this by any means, but one of the things that I want to lay my hands on the table, because I believe in full transparency, that I'm wearing two hats here. One is that I'm trying to kind of co-facilitate the community meeting, but the other hat, which is a bigger hat, is we finally have this together to where I can be a member of the audience and represent just park operations as a concern with regard to the park design. So I hope to be the encourager of creative thinking, and also oh my goodness, I don't know that we can ever maintain that. How do we do this? You know, I'm going to need community help to make this happen. So that being said, I want to segue into a couple of the things that I really like about this park, if you'll indulge me and I get a voice here.
Can we write those ideas up? I notice we're not writing them. The leveling the park seems like an idea.
Yeah.
that
Sorry,
should-
so there was a comment when the gentleman asked about removing the trees. Is wind a concern? Is that what-
Well, I think those trees have a lot of function. I probably would look into why they were planted to begin with, but I think one reason is there's a lot of wood there, and those trees cut them down. You can tell all the updrafts that come off the hill just by the number of birds using that and soaring on them. So if those trees were gone, and if it was windy, I think very much fewer people would use that park to begin with. They would just expect wind's unpleasant to people, and stop using it. So I don't know. You hear a lot of rationales about trees that they're dying. I mean, unless they're Doug firs or sequoias, most trees stay in decline. But I think that if they actually are a risk, I think there should be a reforestation plan to replace them, because most of the trees that people, particularly if you're interested in native trees, they're very slow growing. And I think without those trees, it would change the usage and very nature of the park the way it is now.
Okay, so let me get back to you, Steve, in 1 second. I'll let this gentleman.
I just have one simple question. You said that there was about a 50-50 for the removal of the trees and keeping the trees. How many people were polled? How many people actually commented on that?
This was just a straw poll, and we're not going to run out there with chainsaws and remove the trees.
Okay, so basically those numbers are meaningless then, is that correct?
They're not official numbers. They're not anything that I could rely on in a court or...
So hence they're meaningless. They're not giving a view of what is actually happening. Is that what you're saying? They don't represent the community's thoughts. Is that fair to say?
Actually, that's not what I said, but if that's your hearing of it, that's fine.
Well, how many people made comments? I mean, we're talking about a community, which is a lot of people.
Let's just say, I think the upshot is that really no further tree removal is anticipated.
There's nothing anticipated.
And they have nothing scheduled. That work was done, and Steve, it gave him an impression or understanding of some people's in the community's feeling one way or the other, but you're saying you have nothing at the moment scheduled.
No, there's no plans whatsoever.
So if you were going to be doing some tree work, clearly there would be some further discussion or notification.
So by city code, any tree that is larger than 6 inches at breast height, that is not an imminent hazard or dead, needs to be posted for 30 days and have public comment on that tree. So, that's the rules that I have to play by. I don't want to sidetrack us any more down that way.
So I would like to have, Steve, if you had a few more thoughts you wanted to finish up.
So there's a couple things. One is the swings, and I want to put a check mark on there, not that would ever happen again. I remember those swings. I used to come up from LA and play on those swings before I moved here.
How about the slides? Remember the slides?
I missed the slides. But the swings I remember fondly. They were the best swing set in the city. One of the things, though, bringing it back to current, is this spring, there was an incredible wildlife display, or wildflower display on that hillside. The brodias were blooming off the hook. It was attracting swallowtail butterflies. It was really magical. And the poppies are starting to bloom. We've seeded poppies years ago. There's some of them out there still blooming. But I don't want to lose the sight of the wildlife importance of the hillside.
Right.
It is an incredibly valuable and vibrant contribution to San Francisco's wild lands. The bird flight between Vernal Hill, Twin Peaks, etc. to that hill is incredible. I've seen now twice on 2 different visits, months apart, a Pacific Coast gopher snake living in the park. Thankfully for all of us, it's not a San Francisco garter snake. I'm sorry, it's a Coast Guard, Pacific Coast Garter snake living in the park. And so I'm very